Good evening, members and officers of the Council and members of the press and public. I welcome you to this meeting of the Council. If the fire alarm is activated, please vacate the offices via the stairs, either through the security doors to my right or opposite the lifts in the foyer. Please do not use the lifts. Please assemble in Holy Square on the green. Officers will assist you and advise when it is deemed safe to return to the chamber. The proceedings of this meeting will be recorded and subsequently broadcast on the internet. I would advise that if filming takes place, anyone in attendance in the public areas may have their images captured. I urge anyone filming proceedings to avoid filming members of the public, particularly if there are children present. Does anyone intend to film the meeting? Okay. Any member of the public who objects to the possibility of being filmed may wish to take this opportunity to leave the meeting. Any filming or recording will not be permitted for any item of business where exempt or confidential information is considered following the exclusion of the press and public from the meeting. Would everyone present please ensure that their mobile phones are turned to silent and that they are not used to make or receive phone calls in the chamber whilst this meeting is in progress. Agenda item 1. Apologies for absence. Apologies have been received from Councillors Constantine and Gregory. Are there any other apologies?
Councillor Braidwood, Madam Chairman.
Councillor Brim.
No, Braidwood.
Thank you. Oh, Councillor Braidwood. Councillor Braidwood. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Agenda item 2. Minutes of previous meeting held on the 22nd of February 2018. I move that the minutes of the meeting of the Council held on the 22nd of February 2018 be approved and signed as a correct record. Would the Vice Chairman please second?
Second him.
Do members agree? Thank you. Minutes of the extraordinary meeting held on the 1st of March 2018. I move that the minutes of the extraordinary meeting held on of the Council held on the 1st of March 2018 be approved and signed as a correct record. Would the Vice Chairman please second?
Seconded.
Do members agree? Thank you. Agenda item 4, announcements. I have not been informed of any announcements. Agenda item 5, declarations of interests. Are there any declarations of interests? No. Agenda item... Sorry.
Agenda item 14, changes to members' allowance scheme. I should think we're all
Declare.
Yes, there is a general dispensation in place with regard to members' allowances.
Right, where have we got to? Petition. Agenda item 6, petitions. No petitions have been received in accordance with Council Procedure Rule number 12. Agenda item 7, questions from the press and public. 2 questions have been received from members of the public in accordance with Council Procedure Rule number 13. Please note that only the questioner and respondent are permitted to speak on the question, and that if the questioner is not present at this meeting, their question cannot be put, but will be replied to in writing. Could the questioner please only state the name of the Cabinet member to whom their question is to be put, and read out the exact wording of the question that they submitted to the Council. Agenda item 7A. Question number 1 from a member of the public. Impact on users of clinical waste and sharps disposal services. I am pleased to welcome Ms Clark to the meeting. Could you please make your way to the top table?
Okay, the question was for the person in charge of the waste and recycling. I'm not sure of the exact title. The question is, was any thought given to the impact on users of the clinical waste and sharps disposal service under the Equality Act of 2010 when charges were being considered as those who use the service are being treated unfavourably as a consequence of their disability?
Thank you, Ms Clark. I call upon Councillor Taylor-Smith to answer. Taylor-Smith to respond. Get your teeth in.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you for your question, Ms Clark. Firstly, I should like to offer an apology on behalf of the Council for the incorrect information sent out to some residents. This happened before I became Cabinet Member for Environmental Services, and for the upset, concern and confusion caused for the users of our clinical waste services. An equality impact assessment was carried out by officers as part of the consideration to introduce fees and charges for clinical waste collection, and this was undertaken to ensure compliance with the Controlled Waste England and Wales Regulations 2012, which allows local authorities to charge for clinical and medical waste collection services.
Agenda item 7B. Question number 2 from a member of the public. Health and safety implications of the changes to the clinical waste and sharps disposal service. I am pleased to welcome Ms Norwood to the meeting. Could you please make your way to the top table?
Thank you. This is also for Councillor Taylor-Smith. Was any thought given to the implication under health and safety legislation when users of clinical waste and sharps disposal were originally told they could use their black bin for disposal of waste? If an employee or member of the public received an injury, who would be liable?
Thank you, Ms Norwood. I call upon Councillor Taylor-Smith to respond.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you for your question, Ms Northwood. Firstly, I should like to reiterate categorically that needles and other clinical waste should never be placed into household bins for collection. For clarification, what can go in a household bin includes nappies, incontinence pads, stoma bags, non-infectious dressings, but the advice is to double bag them. I want to assure you that the Council did not take the decision to introduce charges for clinical waste collections lightly. We at Thanet District Council have listened to recent feedback from users of the clinical waste service who are directly affected by these proposed charges, and we are now carefully considering all the concerns raised. And in order to do this, we are deferring indefinitely the implementation of these charges until we have undertaken a wider review informed by comments from our residents, clinical waste users, health partners, health groups and elected members. And the last part of your question, I just wanted to address that, Ms Northwood. The officers are taking advice on the issue of liability that you mentioned there. Thank you.
Agenda item 8. Questions from members of the Council. 6 questions have been received from members. However, question 3 Agenda item 8C regarding outsourcing of council services has been withdrawn from the agenda at the request of the councillor who submitted it. Please note that the time allowed for consideration of questions from members shall not exceed 30 minutes without the leave of the chair. This can only be granted in exceptional circumstances, so I ask members to be succinct and to avoid repetition where possible. Would members please refer to supplementary agenda item number 1 for questions 4, 5 and 6. Agenda item 8A. Question number 1 from a member regarding the postponement of clinical waste and sharp disposal services. I call upon Councillor Matterface.
Thank you, Chair. My question is for Councillor Taylor-Smith and is obviously on the similar topic. The postponement of fees and charges for clinical waste and sharps disposal is welcome, but what alternatives are under consideration and how long will the users of the service have to wait to find out the options?
I call upon Councillor Taylor-Smith to respond.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for your question, Councillor Matterface. We will continue to deliver the clinical waste collection free of charge whilst a review is carried out with health partners, health groups and clinical waste service users. Councillors are also invited to contribute, and I hope that this review will be concluded within the next few months. Officers have already met with the NHS Thanet Clinical Commissioning Group, and there will be further meetings with other health groups and partners to appraise all available options, and we will continue to take on board feedback from users of this service to help inform any future decision.
Councillor Matterface, do you have a supplementary question?
In the fees and charges that were passed in December last year, this item was included. The question may actually have been more suitably addressed at this point to Councillor Gregory, but perhaps Councillor Taylor-Smith can take on board. In that fees and charges, £60,000 was the estimated revenue. Obviously, another source of revenue will have to be found, but I hope that it will not be the clinical waste. And I would also like to ask assurances that any developments in the future, the Environmental Protection Act of 1990 will be included. You have mentioned the controlled waste regulations. There's also the Hazardous Waste Directive of 2011 and the Carriage of Dangerous Goods regulations as well. And I hope they will all be taken into account when a future plan is approved. Thank you.
I call upon Councillor Taylor-Smith to respond.
Thank you, Chairman. I believe that might have been a statement rather than a question, but I can assure Councillor Matterface that all those matters will be taken into account. Thank you. The question about funding I cannot answer at this stage, Chairman, but I'm sure that colleagues will get back to Councillor Matterface in due course. Thank you.
Agenda item 8B. Question number 2 from a member regarding projects in Margate Central Ward. I call upon Councillor Johnston.
Thank you very much, Chairman. This is a question for the Leader of the Council, the new Leader of the Council. What efforts have you made since becoming Leader to progress several projects and to help us in Margate Central Ward? In fairness to Councillor Bayford, I had actually listed 8 items, but I was asked to remove them. So I hope you know what projects I'm talking about. Thank you.
I call upon the Leader to respond.
In that case, Councillor Johnson, I can tell you I don't know the 8 that you're referring to. But I'm sure you're aware of the excellent work being done by our officers in Margate. We've got some ambitious objectives, including reduction of deprivation and health inequalities, creating a more sustainable community, creating new quality affordable housing. And we have had success. Many privately rented homes have been made safe by enforcement. Many residents helped with wider health and welfare needs. Bad landlords driven out, with 39 prosecuted. Less antisocial behaviour and fewer empty homes. The Council continues to work in partnership with SHL and its investors in Dreamland. I'm sure that all councillors would join me in congratulating our staff and our partners who work on these projects.
Thank you very much. I do have a further question because obviously I know all of what you've listed because I constantly report those issues in the ward, as does Councillor Venables. But my list, the 8 that you didn't know about, is now 15 that you didn't know about. So the Fort Hotel, the Theatre Royal, 19 Hawley Square, the Barn in King Street, the Mayor's Parlour and Museum, to revert the decision of removal of the 350k, which may lead to the closure of the Winter Gardens. Thank you for reverting and the cancelling of cancelling the charges to Feelgood. That was very kind of you. But then the addition to the list now is security measures I've been asking for 2 years now at Meeting Court, the work that should have been done at Churchfields at the end of 2015, Store 21 and New Street, which are council-owned properties that have been empty for some time, the chasing of the owners at Primark and Woolworths, who I've written to officers about the planning permissions and what we're making the people do to clean up their buildings. Arlington, a report should have come to Cabinet a long time ago. The wayfaring project in our ward, and of course the shelters. That's 15 items, none of which you mentioned, and I'm sorry that your officers haven't told you that these are items I raise all the time. So please could you tell me when you'll have items on these 15 coming to your Cabinet, which I see you've recently cancelled.
I call upon the leader to respond.
Johnson, yeah, I appreciate the long list that you've got, and I hope you all appreciate that I don't actually have 15 answers for you right now. What I'm prepared to do is to have a meeting with you in the next couple of weeks, and I will be briefed on all those items and we can discuss them in full.
Thank you very much. Did she listen?
No. Agenda item 8D. Question number 4 from a member regarding plastic waste. I call upon Councillor Messenger.
Thank you, Chairman. The question is to Councillor Rosanna Taylor-Smith. Blue Planet have highlighted to the world how plastics have become a detriment to our sea life and environment. Will the Council now look to adopt policy to work towards a plastic-free coastline?
I call upon Councillor Taylor-Smith to respond.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you for your question, Councillor Messenger. Sorry, I can't turn round to look at you with my answer. I welcome your question, and I'm happy to endorse your suggestion that Thanet District Council works towards a plastic-free coastline. And I hope that when I bring back to Council our approach in due course, all members will support it. We'll also have to wait and see what the government proposals are on plastics as well. Briefly, members may be aware that this council is supporting the Surfers Against Sewage Plastic-Free Coastline campaign, and several of you joined the Beach Clean last weekend in Margate. There is another one, and you're all welcome, Saturday, 10 o'clock on Viking Bay in Broadstairs. This council has been working with Keep Britain Tidy on a research project to prevent beach litter. Margate Main Sands was chosen for this study because of the various amenities, concessions on the beach, number of summer visitors, and proximity to the town and railway station. This has given an excellent insight into the main causes of beach litter, and we are now waiting for feedback from Keep Britain Tidy on actions we can take this summer to change behaviour of both visitors and local beach users. This could include changes to bins, signage, working with local businesses, etc., but we will focus strictly on the evidence produced and what will make a difference to litter on our beaches throughout the district. We continue to promote our 2-minute beach clean and hope to provide reusable woven bags very soon. We're thinking about offering the public a badge in return for this beach clean, as we think this would be popular with families, and we encourage them to post their work on social media using the hashtag 2MinuteBeachClean. We also promote the Marine Conservation Society Annual Plastic Challenge, which encourages people to give up plastic for a month in the hope that they will reduce their plastic consumption long term. Also, our education officer has produced a booklet for children, which is distributed to schools and community groups. This tackles marine and other litter, dog fouling and recycling, and how all these factors affect global warming and climate change. None of this could be done without the excellent voluntary groups here in Thanet, and I'm going to mention a few of them, and apologies if I don't mention them all. Broadstairs Town Team and Ramsgate Town Team, and I'm sure there's many more. Thank you.
Councillor Messenger, do you have a supplementary question?
Thank you, Chairman. I wonder then, can we aim, like Manchester City Council, to take steps to ban single-use plastic items from our district by 2020?
I call upon Councillor Taylor-Smith to respond.
Thank you, Councillor Messenger. I certainly hope that TDC will do its very best to meet that. Thank you.
Agenda item 8E. Question number 5 from a member regarding eradication of litter. I call upon Councillor Dawson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This question is to our leader, Bob Bayford. I think you'll all agree that the litter has become a hot topic of conversation for residents across Thanet. So in order to motivate others into action, we need to be active so that everyone benefits. We have a beautiful Isle to live on, and we need to make certain it's kept tidy. We need to be working together, using a hands-on approach. It will mean focusing on forming a focus group led by a strong team of dedicated and enthusiastic members who are willing to push forward ideas, to brainstorm and find...
Point of order, Chair. This is not the question.
It will be at the end, because you can have a two-minute...
Can we clarify?
Read the question out and then...
Okay, I'll do that.
Can I make a point of order? The question has to be read as in the agenda.
Yes, it is permissible to have an introduction to the question before posing the question.
Okay, thank you. Right, okay. Right, we need to be working... Losing time. Right.
Councillor Dawson, can you please just ask your question?
I'm going to go on. We need to be working together, using a hands-on approach. It will mean forming a focus group led by a strong team of dedicated and enthusiastic members who are willing to push forward ideas, to brainstorm and find not only a practical solution, but a creative solution and work cross-party together towards eradicating litter and plastics for our streets and beaches. You may have seen campaigns over the years to keep Britain tidy. In the 1970s, when I was a child, it was the Tidy Man logo, dropping litter into a bin, which is used today, but has been replaced by the Green Man instead, and a series such as the Wombles, who collected and recycled rubbish in ways, their motto being, make use of bad rubbish. The principle is still as important today, if not more so. It is true, there are already established projects out there, and I feel there are massive opportunities and benefits available if we are sought to share and link in with other groups in order to fight the war on litter. At present, the groups appear to be working in isolation, and we do need to be working in a
Councillor
joined-up
Dawson,
way
would you please just ask your
to
question
bring
now?
the campaign alive. Would the leader support a working party, which is cross-party, to oversee and promote a Thanet awareness and educational campaign to eradicate litter and plastics from our streets and beaches? Thank you.
I call upon the leader to respond.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for your question, Councillor Dawson. As can be seen from the previous Cabinet members' answers, we are working hard to improve our streets and beaches, and officers are looking into an umbrella campaign to tackle all of our environmental issues and communicate the messages in a more consistent way. Officers are working directly with local residents to develop this approach, and we're grateful to everyone who attended our recent focus group, which generated a number of new ideas and initiatives for the Council to take forward jointly with the community. I welcome your personal initiative, Councillor Dawson, and fully support it. You've also told me about some of the activities that you're involved in that you didn't mention there, which are going to raise awareness of the issues. It's a great example of how a councillor can use their position to help the community they represent. You will obviously choose the most appropriate ways to take this forward, but you might also want to speak to the Chair of Overview and Scrutiny Panel about whether a working party on litter and waste could be included in the panel's work programme.
Councillor Dawson, do you have a supplementary question? Agenda item 8F. Question number 6 from a member regarding littering fines. I call upon Councillor Larkins.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Most of the correspondence from residents in Eastcliff Ward is about the vast amount of litter strewn around the area. With the permitted litter fine increase by central government, I beg the question, can TDC increase litter fine in line with this new legislation as a deterrent, please?
I call upon Councillor Taylor-Smith to respond.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you for your question, Councillor Larkins. As you may be aware, in April 2017, the Government launched a new litter strategy for England with an ambition to be the generation to leave the natural environment of England in a better state than it found it. The strategy is to apply best practice in education, enforcement and infrastructure to deliver a substantial reduction in litter and littering behaviour. The new legislation, the Environmental Offences Fixed Penalties England Regulations 2017, came into effect on the 1st of April 2018. And officers are currently looking at all the options and implications for implementing the higher fine for littering. We are also waiting for statutory guidance due very soon, which will advise officers how to take into account circumstances like a person's ability to pay when considering implementing the higher fine. Also, for the first time outside London, we will be able to apply these penalties for littering to vehicle owners if it can be proved that litter was thrown from their car, even if it was thrown by another person.
Councillor Larkins, do you have a supplementary question?
Yes, Madam Chair. I think the maximum penalty is £150. A, can we raise the fine up to £150? And B, can we employ more litter wardens? Thank you.
I call upon Councillor Taylor-Smith to respond.
Thank you, Councillor Larkins. I refer to my previous answer. Yes, we can do, but I think we should wait until we actually get the guidance, because maybe you will agree it's probably not worth putting the fine up too high if we're not going to actually get that money. I think it does depend on circumstances, and I think there are plans to add to the enforcement team, but I'm quite happy to get back to you with further details in due course. Thank you.
Agenda item 9, motions on notice. No motions on notice have been received in accordance with Council Procedure Rule 3. Agenda item 10, Leader's Report. I call upon the Leader.
Thank you, Chair. One of the first issues we had to deal with as a new administration was the upset caused by the introduction of charges for the collection of clinical waste, which has been referenced already this evening. In my opinion, it wasn't a good decision, and it was aggravated by poor implementation. It highlighted the need to consult service users when making changes and the importance of effective communication. As a result, a decision has been made to put our customers, our residents, at the heart of everything we do, and to carefully consider the impact on them of our actions before rather than after the event. The fact is that Council gets it right isn't the story, whereas even the smallest mistake we make becomes headline news. You also heard earlier about some of the steps we are taking to address the curse of litter in the district. This has to be a high priority as it blights our streets and beaches, making the environment unpleasant. I'm pleased to report that TDC recently secured 34 prosecutions for non-payment of fixed penalty notices for littering. We also achieved 3 successful prosecutions for fly tipping thanks to tough action taken by the Council. Additionally, we secured a landmark premises closure order on a property in Broadstairs to prevent cuckooing and associated antisocial behaviour. I believe that whilst education will play an important role in changing the public's behaviour, it has to be backed up by effective enforcement, and it will be our policy to support firm and fair enforcement activity across all areas where it's appropriate. This will include planning and perhaps especially parking. We've all seen examples of inconsiderate parking that inconveniences us, and worse, parking in places where it's downright dangerous, we are committed to stopping this. We hope to engage residents more in helping to make Thanet a better place to live, and will be actively engaging with them to seek their views. We recently held a residents' focus group on the topic of clean streets and are presently reviewing the feedback with a view to responding to the ideas which were forthcoming. We all have a responsibility to keep our communities tidy, and I believe that we can improve the way that TDC and Thanet's residents and visitors might work together to tackle this persistent, costly and avoidable problem. You will recall the dreadful weather that we experienced at the beginning of March. The Council activated its severe weather emergency plan and also extended the opening of the winter shelter by a week up to the 5th of March. Waste and recycling collections suffered severe disruption because of the difficult conditions, but all delayed collections were picked up by the end of the following week. I would like to recognise the exceptional efforts that were made by our crews at that time. I think it's important that TDC should work closely with town and parish councils to ensure that where practicable, decisions are made and services are provided by the tier of local government closest to the residents. In this context, I'm pleased to advise that the ownership of Piermont Hall in Broadstairs has transferred from TDC to Broadstairs and St Peter's Town Council. I've taken the decision to reduce the size of Cabinet by 1 member. To facilitate this, I'm taking on some portfolio responsibilities myself, but colleagues are also happy to accept wider responsibilities. I'll be bringing forward shortly a proposal to create Cabinet Assistant posts, which will not only take some of the pressure off Cabinet members, but will also help with succession planning. I'm very conscious that I lead a minority administration, and I feel that it's appropriate that other parties are involved in the Council's journey. I will be bringing forward a proposal to create a group consisting of myself and Councillors Savage, Matterface, Stewart Piper and Wells, together with the senior management team, to address strategic matters that affect TDC. I will further be proposing that the Chair and Vice Chair positions on this Council are shared by all parties on a proportional basis. Tonight, I will be proposing that non-executive positions on outside bodies should be, at annual council, allocated to those willing and best suited to carrying out those tasks from whichever party. Turning to the local plan, as you are aware, the Secretary of State for Housing, Communities and Local Government, Sajid Javid, wrote to this Council in March, indicating that he was intervening in our local plan process. The messages from the Ministry, however, were positive, emphasising that the intention was to help Thanet accelerate the production of its local plan. I welcomed this as our number one priority on taking control was to bring forward the date of submission for examination of our plan from April 2019. This was the date proposed by the previous administration. We had our first meeting with the Government's Chief Planner this week, and he assured us that he and his team were not here to write our local plan. Their job was to assess where we are in the process and how we got here. They would then recommend to the Secretary of State the fastest way to produce an appropriate plan for Thanet. We explained that we were all working on bringing the date for submission forward to later this year, and we will be sending them a detailed timetable showing how we will achieve this. We were also advised to continue work on preparing the plan. I'm confident that no alternative approach could produce a plan quicker, but it would be unwise to be complacent, and I will keep members informed of our progress. On a related matter, it was announced this week that RSP have now submitted their DCO application, the progress of which we will be monitoring closely. At a meeting with RSP yesterday, it was agreed also that they would make a presentation to all members, possibly in June. To end on a truly positive note, in the short time that I've been leader of TDC, I've been impressed by the quality and commitment of our officers. Despite the challenges of budget cuts, they continue to serve our community with enthusiasm, and nowhere is this more apparent than in our housing department. At a prestigious local government awards ceremony recently, they won the 2018 LGC Housing Initiative Award for their work on Margate Live project. The team produced outcomes which the judges described as demonstrating a successful and sustained strategy. I can't say that. I'll start that again. It's worth hearing properly. The judges described them demonstrating a successful and sustained strategy to deal with a very challenging housing problem. It showcases clear interventions, partner and community engagement, bravery and tenacity. I almost said it that time, so that was all right. TDC has also been shortlisted for 2 further awards, so many congratulations to all those involved. Thank you.
I call upon Councillor Reverend Piper to comment on or ask questions in relation to the Leader's report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for your report, Councillor Bayford, and also for the assurance that you approve of introductions. So may I, as leader of the largest single political group in opposition, which was established to try and give a voice to the people of Thanet, focusing on their aspirations rather than party politics, join with the Right Honourable Sajid Javid in welcoming you to your recent appointment as Leader of the Council. I noted that he effectively went on to be quite critical of all those councillors who put you in this position. But as you might expect, I do not share his views on that point. 35 of us believed the decision taken on January the 18th was the right one, and that it would at least give us a chance of meaningful discussion with the Secretary of State's team to try and impress upon them, among other things, the reality of our local situation regarding housing need, deliverability and his excessive housing numbers. The chalice you have picked up is not without challenge, or even a trace or two of poison, but you have at least picked it up and set out in this first report just some of the key issues to be faced. I welcome your determination to be more open and put our residents at the heart of all our endeavours, and who knows, perhaps that will, in the end, lead to a headline that says Council gets it right. At least, please, don't let us be boring. Let us engage enthusiastically with our residents. The Winter Shelter Programme is the envy of many councils, I'm sure, and the team deserve every accolade afforded to them, as do those responsible for the implementation of the severe weather emergency protocols. Not all councils run both. I welcome too your plans to involve group leaders, together with the senior management team, to address strategic matters for this council. Good communication is going to be paramount for the next 12 months or so if we are to show the public that we're working constructively for the benefit of all of our communities. The sword of Damocles has not fallen, and it is good to note that the Chief Planner is to examine what we've done and then offer help and advice on an appropriate way forward. On that note, may I just mention that it is good to see that several members appear to have vacated their nuclear shelters and joined us for this evening's proceedings. Their absence at the previous 2 meetings was noticeable. The housing team have achieved great successes recently, and the award is most certainly merited. Too often there are more brickbats than bouquets for them, and they should be proud of their achievements. Perhaps I can leave you with a little riddle that you don't have to answer at the moment, but I'm happy to give you the answer later on. When does 13 plus 1 not equate to 14? Thank you, Madam Chair.
I call upon the Leader to respond.
Just thank Councillor Piper for his comments, Chair.
I call upon Councillor Wells to comment on or ask questions in relation to the Leader's report.
Yes, good evening, Councillor Bayford. That was an interesting report and a very straightforward one. You used to talk in some detail about having non-politically biased reports, and I congratulate you on producing one as your first report. And I hope there will be many more like that. Just 2 things really I'd like to comment on or point out really. I'll be fascinated by your analysis which allows you to produce something before April 2019, because there was a very clear timetable, I think, that was discussed at the time and in the local plan working group that led us to that point. So it would be really interesting to see what you think you can cut out of that en route. And secondly, just add congratulations to certainly the awards that the housing team has won, along with several other awards that have come out of what was a very successful cross-party cooperation, which was called the Improvement Board, which is, and you were there at that meeting when it was decided at the Improvement Panel that we would actually put TDC officers forward for awards to actually demonstrate the nature of the journey that we've been on, and this is one such event that has actually come to fruition because we did all work successfully together.
I call upon the leader to respond.
Thank Councillor Welsh for his comments. Thank you.
I call upon Councillor Matterface to comment on or ask questions in relation to the leader's report.
Thank you, Chair. The premises closure order that was referenced in your draft that you sent me was extremely welcome. I have to pat myself on the back. I did have quite a bit of input into that, and residents tell me that it is, at the time, for the time being, it is a great deal quieter, and thanks again to the Housing Department working in conjunction with Orbit and the police. I've got a few questions for you. We did discuss as group leaders having a 2-year moratorium on part of the local plan. I would be interested to know if you have any intentions of reviving that. Also, Mr Javid had talked about working with other councils, so can you update us or give us some kind of indication whether you consider that the local plan in its current form, you will anticipate working with other councils in its production? Housing numbers, Councillor Piper has already referenced those. Can you give us any date? Have you had any clues in your meeting how the housing numbers are likely to go? There's a lot of speculation on that. And I was quite surprised to discover I have been appointed to a strategic matters cross-party. It's very welcome, but could you please enlighten me before I accept the offer what exactly I am likely to be strategically mattering on? Thank you.
I call upon the leader to respond.
Okay, well, if I address that one first, I mean, I thought it had become widely known that I was intending to create something that had been badly named by me the Oversight Board, because that implies that you pick up the things we didn't get right, and that wasn't the intention. No, I mean, I think Councillor Wells probably got closest to the kind of definition. It is an effort to replicate the improvement board, except it's not just about improvement, it's about looking at, you know, the way forward for this council. And I do think it's really important that we do all work together, and, you know, and it seems to work tonight. Maybe that's just a lucky hit, but we'll see. As far as your questions on the local plan are concerned, I mean, the situation is, as I say, we didn't know what to expect when we had the meeting with the chief planner, as I say, what we've been advised to do is to carry on working on our plan, and it would be improper at this stage to really comment on where we are with that. As far as working with other councils, that hasn't been put on the agenda. That appeared in David's letter. I'm not sure, have I missed anything else about the local plan? No, I was saying I think it's premature to talk about how the plan may actually come out of this process. Thank you.
Agenda item 11, annual report. Chairman of the Overview and Scrutiny Panel. I call upon Councillor David Saunders to present his report.
Thank you, Chairman. Before I present the annual report on behalf of my fellow members and the Overview and Scrutiny Panel, I'd like to give my personal thanks to the officers in Democratic Services, and in particular to Charles Ungui, for their help and assistance over the past year. Members, the report before you this evening highlights some of the panel's key activities and achievements over the 2017-18 municipal year. The current scrutiny arrangements are shown on page 31, and as members will see in 2.2, we have adopted a system of prioritising scrutiny review projects, which is intended to enable the panel to conduct their work more efficiently and for members to focus on issues that would add value to the decision-making process for the council and help improve service delivery to our residents. Also, and with a view to encouraging both transparency and inclusiveness, we have extended the scheme of allowing public speaking at scrutiny meetings. I'm making it very short, but if I could just add, we've had the issue of littering raised this evening, and on Tuesday of this week, the Community Safety Partnership Working Party met and had a very interesting and informative presentation by Kevin behind me, and I understand that all members would have received an email of the slides and the information, and I'm sure that in the new municipal year, littering will be raised using the new arrangements that I've just outlined and bring it to scrutiny so that we can review it in more detail. Thank you, members.
Thank you. Agenda item 12, annual report. Chairman of the Governance and Audit Committee. I call upon Councillor Buckley to present his report.
Thank you, Chair. Excuse me. If I could draw members' attention to the annual Governance and Audit report set out on page 39, agenda item 12, Annex 1. As you are aware, on an annual basis, the Governance and Audit Committee goes through a self-assessment process to understand its performance against its terms of reference. This information then feeds into the annual report, which is before you this evening. The annual report provides detail of the attendance at meetings, the reports considered by the committee and the outcome of the self-assessment. It also identifies any future challenges for the committee and actions to improve its effectiveness. I therefore propose that members approve the content of the annual report and the recommended actions within the action plan. And as with the Chairman of Overview and Scrutiny, may I take this opportunity to thank all members of the Governance and Audit Committee, members and officers who have contributed, and also thank the officers for throughout the municipal year. Excuse me for the last convoluted sentence. Thank you.
Thank you. Agenda item 13, annual report, Chairman of Standards Committee. I call upon Dr. Sexton to present his report. Dr. Sexton, please, can you come to the front bench?
Chair, members will have received the report and have had the opportunity to reflect on the observations contained within it. I have nothing further of substance to add other than to commend the report to Council. Thank you.
Thank you.
You've got something to raise a hand up.
Oh. Right, okay. Councillor Howes.
I've got to be rather careful to contain myself because this is a disgusting report. Not only was it completely, well, not completely, but not factual. The author of it did not in any way, shape or form look into the facts of it. But my most...
Councillor Howes, will you please manage your language?
What did I say? What?
Disgusting is inappropriate.
Well, I don't believe I could. Could you repeat back what I said that was out of order?
You can carry on, but you need to be mindful of what you're saying.
I'm an elected councillor, Chair, and I represent my constituents of Ward Birchington South. I have on many occasions written on Facebook that I am largely guided by their opinions and not my own. Regardless, sometimes I vote when it's not my opinion. This was disgusting, but I'm not so worried about the report, but I'm more worried about the officers that allowed my integrity to be impugned.
I think we've heard enough, Councillor
No,
House.
I don't think you have.
Would you
heard
please
enough.
sit down?
No.
I'll stand up.
Then you can stand up all you like. I'm here to represent my constituents, and that man is not going to...
Right, we'll adjourn the meeting. Can we call this meeting to order, please? Councillor Howes, you've got 20 seconds to finish saying what you wanted to say. Would you, if you've got anything to say, would you please say it in an appropriate manner?
Freedom of speech. That's all I have to say. Freedom of speech. And if I said any inappropriate words, I apologise, but I don't believe I did.
Councillor Linda Piper.
I wish to place on record my disapproval concerning paragraph 610 of the Standards Committee report. The report proffered personal opinion about the way certain elected members voted at Council on the 22nd of February. It also invites other members to speculate as to the motives behind that group's voting decision. I was not asked personally why I voted as I did. In my view, the report should not comment on the way any elected member exercises their right to vote as they see fit in this chamber. Nor does anyone have the right to malign my character and integrity in a public document where I do not have any right of reply. If this paragraph is not removed, it would set a precedent whereby council officers or appointees would have carte blanche to use official reports as a means of unjustly criticising the way members vote. That, Madam Chair, would be a dangerous precedent indeed. Surely we have the democratic right to vote as we wish, without incurring such scathing and factually incorrect criticism in a public document. Thank you.
Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to point out on the standard report that 610 isn't completely correct. It says that we voted on block. Well, I can surely say that we didn't. I didn't even vote that night. Also, the Chair did not ask for any abstentions. This needs to be obviously improved in any other voting in the future, if possible, please. Thank you.
Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Madam Chair. With regards to article paragraph 6.10, I've actually raised a public disclosure with regards to the behaviour that went on that night, and I'm still waiting for a response from the Chief Executive and the Monitoring Officer. With regards to paragraph 3.1, this public report has made assumptions regarding elected members which are misleading and damaging. There are many reasons why a member might need to leave a meeting earlier than intended, and I'm surprised about the lack of truth in this report regarding members' behaviour, and I believe it to be vexatious, political, frivolous tit-tat.
Councillor Stuart Piper.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This report was first published in the public arena just a few days after the council meeting of the 22nd of February. The date is significant because paragraph 610 of the report refers to that meeting. The report was published without consideration for its accuracy, and despite several attempts having been made to have the report revised, there seems to have been a determination to persist with this wholly inaccurate and misleading paragraph. 610 does not offer any evidence to substantiate the remarks, nor does it indicate that any codes of practice may have been breached. The author seems to have got a little carried away and been unwilling to accept any error. In simple terms, 610 is, in my view, a bit of a rant about the way some elected members chose to vote. As far as I'm aware, criticism of the voting decisions of any members in any public report does not fall within the remit of any council officer or appointee. I believe the situation has been completely misunderstood, and I believe the author should have at least asked a question or two for clarity before committing his words to a public report. I have been disappointed, Madam Chair, that despite meetings at the highest level, I've been unable to persuade anybody of the inappropriate nature of this rant. Nevertheless, the point needs to be made, I believe, that such behaviour taken upon oneself can never be acceptable. Ironically, this report, if accepted without condemnation or any amendments at all, would set a dangerous precedent. It would give permission to publish on a public platform allegations of our elected members without fear of retribution, something that was not afforded to the councillor who was charged with a very similar offence. I would like to advise members that this report is the subject of more than one formal complaint, because members have felt their character and integrity has been attacked without justification. I have been clearly identified, though not named, and singled out for specific unfounded criticism, and I am one who has lodged a formal complaint. It is my understanding, Madam Chair, that if Council notes this report this evening as it stands, we are neither accepting it or approving of its contents, but merely noting that it has been written. I may, however, be wrong, so I would appreciate some clarity on that point, Madam Chair, because I cannot or accept or approve of this report with paragraph 610 remaining. Thank you.
Yes, I agree with your view. The council is simply receiving the report, neither endorsing it nor not endorsing it. They're receiving the report as delivered.
Dr Sexton, do you want to add anything to that?
Thank you, Chair. I am independently appointed to hold up a mirror to members from time to time to reflect on conduct in the chamber and outside. The observations made in that report, in my report, are frankly factually accurate. I will not change it. Thank you.
She's already spoken.
Councillor Linda Piper, you've already spoken. You're not allowed to speak again. Councillor Johnson.
Thank you. It's just a point that Councillor Taylor made. He was very clear that he did not vote on the night, and yet it says in the report en bloc. I think that needs to be corrected. If members of that group didn't all vote in support of Councillor Piper's concerns on the night, that if we're going to move forward as a council that works for the good of our community, we need to get everything right. And whatever political differences we have, if a member says that he didn't vote in that way and he didn't follow the lead of everybody else on that new team there, that needs to be corrected in that report.
We're not in a position to correct the report. The report is the report, but you might want to note it in the minutes of this meeting. That's what's been said.
Thank you. Thank you.
Are you actually saying that on the basis of what that was just been said, that the report was actually wrong?
No, nobody's saying the report's wrong. What we're saying is it can be noted.
Although it had an error in it.
Agenda item 14, changes to the members' allowance scheme. Oh. Hmm? Do members want to note the report? Yes. Right, okay. Right. Agenda item 14, changes to the members' allowance scheme. I call upon the leader.
Very difficult to follow all that, Chair. I would just like to move the recommendations 1 to 6, but with the following slightly altered recommendation 2, which is to agree introduction of 5 SRAs for portfolio assistance to be paid at a rate of £1,500 each, and that proposals to allocate the savings made from the deletion of the shadow cabinet post be brought to annual council. Thank you.
Is there a seconder?
Happy to second that, Madam Chair.
Do members agree? Thank you. Agenda item.
Could you tell me who on the opposition side, seeing they've both got 14 more or less, who's getting the opposition allowances at the moment? Thank you. Nobody? Money for cleaning my ward then? And mine.
Mine first.
Yeah, sorry.
Agenda item 15, pay policy statement, financial year 2018-19. Would members please refer to supplementary agenda number 1? I call upon the leader.
Moved recommendation, Chairman.
Is there a seconder?
Happy to second that, Madam Chair.
Do members... Councillor Fenner.
Thank you. I note the equalities duty assessment was carried out for this policy, but nowhere in this policy can I see any mechanism to monitor the parity of pay between genders. The gender pay gap has been reported in the public domain for many organisations, so we cannot assume that TDC is always going to be immune to it. There needs to be active monitoring of the gender pay gap within the pay structure. Therefore, I would like to propose an amendment or addendum as a new paragraph, paragraph 6, we could call it gender pay gap, and it would read, a mechanism will be set up to monitor regularly the gender pay gap at TDC and report to Council. I move.
Second.
Can I interrupt at that point? The pay policy statement is a statutory document which reflects the requirements of the Localism Act, and it sets out particular requirements of what we need to include in the pay policy statement. In terms of gender pay gap, gender equality, we also have a separate statutory obligation to do that as well, but that happens outside the pay policy statement. So the work continues. We do work on the gender pay gap, and I have recently completed that work, but it's not part of the pay policy statement because it doesn't relate to how we pay our staff. It's got nothing to do with how we pay our staff or how they're remunerated. That's a completely different, separate issue, and therefore should not be in the pay policy statement. We should be, carry on as we do now, we should report it separately.
Where do we find it then?
Councillor Fenner?
Yeah, I still need to know what mechanism is going to be set up to monitor the pay. Where is it? Where is that mechanism?
I'll ensure that the link is provided to all members after this meeting.
Councillor Wells?
Yeah, it's just a similar thing really, which is, but also not just provide the link, but can you just provide us all with the guidance of when this comes to council in the same way as the pay policy statement has, and which part of the legislation it sits with and how the two sit together? Thank you.
Do members agree? Thank you. Agenda item 16, changes to the Council's constitution. I move that the recommendations as set out in the report be adopted. Would the Vice Chairman please second?
Seconded, Madam Chairman. Thank you.
Do members agree? Oh. Councillor Brem.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I feel that before you start implementing further change to the Constitution, staff, senior members of staff need to be getting the basics right and learn how to walk before they run. In Part 2 of the Constitution...
Councillor Brim, we're not going down that road again.
I'm quoting the Constitution, and this is democratically important that I do that, and I have this...
You shouldn't be referencing officers in a derogatory fashion.
Well, we're not referencing officers with derogatory.
Right, so I go back to item, in Part 2 of the Constitution, item 103, paragraph 3, the Constitution states that the purpose of the Constitution is to help councillors represent their constituents effectively. If our questions that we're asking in the chambers are being repeatedly not answered by people, put before them in council... And
Councillor Brim, I'm sorry, this has got nothing to do with the report.
If people are failing to answer the questions, or by giving a written response, and you are trying to alter the Constitution by not allowing members the opportunity to ask the same question in a 6-month time limit...
Councillor Brim, will you please...
How does this help councillors best represent their constituents? Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. As monitoring officer, I'm responsible for reviewing and updating the Constitution as appropriate. So it would be really helpful if Councillor Brim were to contact me and express her concerns, and then if necessary I can bring them to a Constitution Review Working Party, which will then bring it up to Standards Committee and then to Council. So I think we can't do it on the hoof here because that's not what our procedure allows, but I think it would be helpful for a discussion to explain your concerns, then I'll pick them up and take them forward as necessary.
Do members agree? Thank you. Agenda item 17, representation on outside bodies. I call upon the leader.
Thank you, Chair. As I indicated earlier, I think that the right way for this list to be put together is that it's completely cross-party, that we put the most appropriate person who wants to do the job from whatever party on that list. So for tonight, what I would like to propose, and I may need some help with the wording, is that the list as shown is agreed, and that the current nominees stay in post until annual council. Thank you.
Is there a seconder?
Happy to second that, Madam Chair.
Do members agree with the leader's approach? Thank you. Agenda item 18, changes to committees, panels and boards, 2017-18, proportionality. I call upon the leader to make a proposal in respect of the options as outlined in the report.
Proposed option 1, Chair.
Is there a seconder?
Happy to second that, Madam Chair.
Does any member wish to propose an alternative option? Councillor Piper?
Option 2, Madam Chair, please.
Is that seconded?
Eh?
Is that seconded?
Have you got a seconder? Oh, he's got thousands.
Do so those in favour of option. Please show those in favour of option 1.
Those in favour of option 1, can we have a show of hands?
2.
Those in favour of option 2? Can we have a show of hands?
We've got this. We've got
And then
Councillor Edwards. Yeah.
so 13. And then any abstentions?
Any abstentions?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's option 1 has been agreed.
Option 1 has been agreed. Yeah. Standards Committee and Joint Transportation Board. I move that the recommendation as set out in paragraph 3.2
Changes to committees. Have we
No,
missed
you've
something?
got to do this first and then do that. So, carry on. Sorry.
I move that the recommendation as set out in paragraph 3.2 of the report be agreed. Would the Vice Chairman please second?
Seconded, Madam Chairman.
Do members agree? Right, thank you. Right. This one, isn't it now? Yeah. Nomination of members to serve on committees. Group leaders may wish to take this opportunity to advise of changes to their nominations to committees, panels and boards for the remainder of 2017-18. Councillor Bayford, do you wish to advise on any nomination changes?
Not to committees, but I'd like to propose chair of, vice chair of. Sorry. Okay, sorry. Okay. I just want to get down the pub, chair. Sorry.
Councillor Reverend Piper, do you wish to advise of any nomination changes?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Option 1 having been agreed, we would need to add Councillor John Dennis to the Licensing Board and add Councillor Linda Potts to the Overview and Scrutiny Committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wells, do you wish to advise of any nomination changes?
Okay, I'd like to advise one nomination change. Councillor Judy Dellis to move from being a member of the Planning Committee to being on the reserve list, and Councillor Bob Grove to be a member of the Planning Committee.
Thank you. Councillor Matterface, do you wish to advise of any nomination changes?
Not at this point, thank you.
Thank you. Election of Vice Chairman. Election of Vice Chairman to the Governance and Audit Committee. Is there a nomination? Councillor Bayford.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to nominate Councillor Day, please.
Is there a seconder?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'd like to second that nomination of Councillor Day to the Vice Chair of Governance and Audit.
Are there any further nominations? No. Councillor Day will then be Vice Chair of Governance and Audit. Yeah.
So that's it.
Yeah. And that concludes the business for this meeting of the Council.